Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10-Minute Bible Lesson. Appreciate you joining us today. I think if you can remember last time, Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. Do you remember that? So the Bible says that when Joseph did this, that his brothers, they were just dismayed. I'm just kind of thinking that another way of saying it, that their jaw dropped when he said that he was their brother. I just think that they just couldn't, their brains could not grasp what he was telling them. And that happens to us sometimes. So we're going to see what Joseph said to them, and that's in Genesis 45, verses 4 and 5. And Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near to me." So they came near. Then he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." And I just thought it was kind of interesting when he said this. He introduced himself. He said, "Listen, I am Joseph, your brother." And like I said, I'm just thinking that they couldn't believe that this was so. And Joseph, the Bible says that Joseph said he told them to come near to him. And it says they did. They came up close to him. And it kind of, for some reason, this makes me think of Jesus. Because Jesus bids us to come to him. He says, "Come unto me, all ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." And Joseph said, "Come to me," and they did do that. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Now, it would be hard to imagine what would be in the minds of Joseph's brothers. Just think about it a minute. Because in their mind, I think they thought their brother was dead. It's true, they didn't kill their brother. They did sell him into slavery. But I'm thinking that in their mind, they probably thought he's probably dead by now. And so it made me think this: they would never, ever, ever say to one another, I wonder when we sold our brother into slavery into Egypt, I wonder if now he's become the governor. They would never, ever have imagined that or thought that. So just think about that for a minute, if you would. Joseph told them this. He said that it was God who was in all of this. And it was God that was in all of that. Of course it was. And he told them the reason all of this had happened. What was that reason? It was to preserve their lives and the lives of their families and the lives of their father. All of those things. And Joseph, I'm just thinking, when he told them that he was their brother, it was a shock to them. And sometimes the truth can be a shock to us, as it was here. So anyway, he was telling them that. And then he told them this. He was telling them about the famine. So he said, there's been 2 years of famine. But there's going to be 5 more years, and there will neither be plowing or harvesting or sowing. There won't be any of that. And so here's how Joseph describes it in verse 7 of Genesis 45. And he says this to them: "And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." Was it a great deliverance? It was an amazing deliverance. No one could have ever imagined this would be how God's plan would unfold. And so God was saving Israel, and he was providing for their continued existence by a great deliverance. And see, God is still delivering people. And what do I mean by that? Listen, when someone comes and humbles himself before the Lord, confesses their sins and their sinfulness, and they're willing to change the way they used to live their whole life, and they put their trust in Jesus, God will save them and deliver them and make them a new person. So God is still delivering people and still saving those that trust Him. Now here's something else that Joseph said to his brothers, and this is in verse 9 of Genesis 45. He says, "Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry." So what did Joseph do? He says, I want you to go back and tell our father that all of this that has happened. And then after that, he's overwhelmed with emotion. And the Bible says this, that he fell on the neck of his brother Benjamin and he wept. And then after he did that, he kissed all of his brothers. And he wept over all of his brothers. And he just was so happy. And after he did all that, Joseph told him this. He says, I want you to return back to the land of Canaan. And I'm going to load up 10 donkeys full of all of the goods of Egypt. So you'll have that for your journey. So he's preparing to go back. So it says in verses 25 and 26 of Genesis 45, then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. I wonder how Jacob took this information. And it says, and Jacob's heart stood still, because he did not believe them. I can understand him not believing them, because he thought his son was dead. He was almost sure he'd been destroyed and killed by some animal, and now they tell him, no, he's not dead. In fact, he ruling all of Egypt, second in command to Pharaoh. And so Jacob, he's just, I don't tell him, he can't process all of this. So listen, he's been concerned about his sons. He was concerned about them and had anxiety, I'm sure, when they left, because they told him all this information about the ruler of the land and how the ruler took them as spies and how he had to have Benjamin. No doubt he just, concerned about all of this, about all of his son, and he was especially concerned about Benjamin. So when they gave him this report and they told him that Joseph was the ruler of all the land, the Bible says his heart stood still. I'm not sure what that meant, but it sounds pretty awesome. Well, let's go on and look at the last verse. Now, these last two verses, this is verses 27 and 28 of Genesis 45. And by the way, before I finish this, I just want to mention, I believe this is going to be our last lesson about Joseph. So we're going to be making a transition in our next lesson, going from the life of Joseph, and we'll be transitioning into the life of Moses. But let's go ahead and read these last two verses. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. So it finally dawns upon him. It sinks into Jacob that actually his son is really alive, especially because Joseph not only loaded up 10 donkeys, but he sent wagons and carts and stuff back to his father and to their children, so they could carry his father and carry all the kids and the women back to Egypt. And he looked and he saw all of that, and the evidence was right before his eyes. And so finally he said, it's enough. I do believe that he's alive, and I'm going to go see him. I'll see my son before I die. What an amazing, amazing story. I love the story of Jacob and Joseph. And we're just going to end it there. And we'll pick up next time, as I said, trying to do a transition between the life of Jacob and Joseph and the life of Moses. But we appreciate you joining us today. And we hope you'll tune in next time, and hope you have a really good week.